you drift into a lull, cinematic in its softness, as though night itself is tucking you under a cloud. You probably want to make it through this day, but isn't that exactly the plan? Before the hush deepens, I'd whisper in a sleepy, genuine tone, please like and subscribe if you're fluttering somewhere between consciousness and dream, and drop your location and local time in the comments so we can be twilight pen pals across continents. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. You find yourself seated on a tatami mat in a dim room, scented faintly of lingering incense and aged wood. The kind of room that sighs with stories. The air is warm, soft as a worn-out blanket, and your fingertips trace the edge of a silk kimono draped beside you. You hear the faint rustle of fabric folding like butterflies too polite to flutter forcefully, and sunlight spills through a paper sliding door, painting gentle patterns across the cloth. Tonight's story is about the quiet art of folding kimono for an entire day, an unhurried ritual that tucks both garment and spirit into graceful order. Major historical fact: the kimono evolved from the Heian period escasode and took its enduring form, straight seams and rectangular panels, by the Muromachi era, giving clothing its elegant universality across body types and genders. Obscure cultural tidbit: artisans call the subtle design of folding along seams cedarwood, a technique that lets you fold a kimono even while standing, perfect for those days you read too lazy to sit. You inhale gently, feeling the weight of centuries in that simple fold, as though each crease carries echoes of quiet mornings in Kyoto. Historians still debate whether the cedarwood arose from necessity or from polite heredity, but let that uncertainty wrap you like a soft shawl. 3 light touches of irony drift through, picturing someone folding kimono while scrolling social media, imagining all-day dedication as an ancient productivity hack, and musing that even the cloth knows patience better than your inbox does. The room stays hushed, the light softens, and the kimono seems content to rest in your lap like a fellow sleeper. You remember that tassel peeking from the obi earlier, and now you notice the faint scent of starch from its past life, comforting, familiar, and faintly obsessive. You're lulled by ritual and fabric, by a history that doesn't shout, but sighs, let's slow down. You're still here, in that gentle haze where every heartbeat is a quiet chime. The kimono beside you seems heavier, now with meaning. Its folds a language you can feel. That standing fold technique you learned in section 1. It's back, but whispered this time as though the fabric itself is advising you to breathe deeper. Let's lean into layers. Major historical fact: during the Edo period, kimono design became richly expressive as merchant classes, buoyed by Genroku culture, embraced luxurious colors and hand-painted patterns, though sumptuary laws barred them from purple or gold, giving birth to an aesthetic of refined simplicity called iki. Obscure cultural nugget: in some martial arts schools, folding the teacher's hakama is a traditionally assigned task for the senior student. Folding becomes ritual and respect woven into cloth. You gently press your palm against the kimono, feeling the silk cool under your hand, imagining centuries of fingers smoothing these folds. Historians still debate whether iki was about subtle elegance or slick thrift, but let that question float, as soft as tea steam. 3 whispered jokes settle in, thinking iki sounds like IKEA, but for minimalism without instructions. Imagining the head student sighing, not again, while folding another hakama and picturing shimmering Edo merchant kimono band from literal gold paint, but full of metaphorical sparkle. That irony nestles itself. You're learning about fabric politics and etiquette while drifting toward dreamland. Like a pillow whispering secrets. You sketch, fingers over a fold you can hear the faintest rustle, like the kimono's own lullaby. You remember the incense and the light pattern from section 1 now. The pattern stretches. Like memory, across the folds, and the room feels even quieter. This is not a story in a race, but a slow river that curves into sleep. Your eyelids feel like silk. Your breath matches the creases. And if you find yourself wondering whether these folds were meant to honor beauty or simply keep the fabric tidy well, the scholars can argue. You just get to rest. You're swaying in a soothing rhythm now, as though the room itself is lulling your thoughts into gentle ripples. That standing fold trick, cedarwood, you learned in section 1. It softly reappears, but quieter, patient like a friend, reminding you of their presence only if you choose to notice. You've folded once, and now you're in the comfortable familiarity of ritual. Let's let the past hum through those folds. Major historical fact in the Edo period. The merchant class, despite being officially lower than the samurai, gained increasing wealth and fueled a booming demand for elegant kimono, spurring innovation in dyeing, weaving, and patterning that sometimes rivaled aristocratic fashion. Obscure cultural tidbit: artisans often hid exquisite fabrics inside the lining or hems of otherwise plain-looking kimono. So the elegance was a secret between wearer and friend, a sort of IKEA fashion without assembly required surprise. You lean back, feeling your spine soften against the floor, and imagine yourself as one of those craftsmen plucking silk threads and hiding beauty like treasure in a pillowcase. Historians still debate whether those hidden linings were practical camouflage or secret vanity. But let that ambiguity float over you like a featherlight duvet. 3 gentle jokes curl into your awareness, picturing a merchant gossiping. My kimono-s just subtle, you can't tell at first glance. Imagining hidden linings as ancient adult Easter eggs, and musing that this hidden elegance is basically boss-level fashion stealth style. The irony nestles in quietly. You're being lulled by whispers of hidden opulence, while your own eyelids feel heavier. The soft sliding door whispers behind you remember how light danced across fabric in section 1. Now that light wraps around each fold, and the room breathes with history as layered as the kimono itself. You feel tethered between centuries, each fold a gentle wave that rocks you closer toward sleep. The hush deepens, and the kimono beside you lies smooth, folded with purpose. That stand-up folding technique, cedarwood. It seems to whisper, keep going slowly, like a lullaby's echo. You're gently carried forward, one soft crease at a time. Let's drift into the aesthetic born from all that subtlety, iki. Major historical fact: the Tokugawa shogunate issued sumptuary laws limiting the merchant class from wearing flashy colors like purple or ornate gold embroidery, which led to a restrained, subtle fashion aesthetic known as iki, elegance in understatement and quiet refinement. Obscure cultural nugget: in Edo this gave rise to the 48 browns and 100 grays palette, where artisans wove dozens of subtly different shades of brown and grey, all modest, all nuanced, like whispers in color. You press your fingers gently along the edge of the cloth, imagining threads dyed with the faintest hues distinct only if you lean close. Historians still debate whether Iki was born as a form of resistance or sophisticated style, but let that insightful mystery fold into your breathing. 3 soft jokes drift gently, thinking Iki sounds like IKEA, but without the assembly or flat packs, imagining someone comparing their kimono to 50 shades of grey soft. Not 50, and picturing the artisan mixing browns in secret murmuring, "This is 47, but feel free to sleep on it." The irony nestles tenderly. You learn about hidden complexity in simplicity while your own thoughts simplify, simmering into dreams. You recall that incense and paper door light from section 1. They feel like gentle elders of this story, now brushed with brown-grey tones. The kimono's folds seem like quiet contours of sleep you're halfway in, lulled by color stories and ritual. Your eyelids flutter like fabric in a soft breeze. And when you wake tomorrow asking, was Iki resistance or art? The answer can wait in that soft twilight of ambiguity. You just get to rest. You settle deeper into the hush, your fingers tracing the kimono's folds like notes on a lullaby. That sodidatomi technique from section 1 drifts back as a quiet gesture, fold upright, whispering slow calm. Each crease unfolds a rhythm, and the fabric feels alive under your touch, breathing with centuries of quiet devotion. Let's thread history into your folds. Major historical fact: during the Muromachi period 1336 to 1573, the kasoda, short-sleeved garment, transformed from undergarment to outerwear, especially among samurai, laying the foundation for the modern kimono with its straight seams and universal elegance. Obscure cultural detail. Samurai valued the kasode for its practicality. The small sleeves avoided snagging in combat, and folding it became a humble, almost meditative act, a gesture of both order and respect. You smooth a fold and feel its weight settle into you. Historians still debate whether this evolution was bred out of necessity or aesthetic. Refinement let that gentle ambiguity cuddle your thoughts. 3 soft jokes float in, picturing a samurai muttering, sleeves flapping in battle. No thanks, imagining someone later folding the kasode, whispering. Folding is the new meditation, and musing that modern minimalist fashion could learn from this: less fabric, fewer interruptions, more naps. The irony nestles like mist in the room, a martial origin folded into your bedtime calm. The kimono in your lap is no longer a garment, it's a quiet companion, remembering centuries of soft breath. You exhale, and the room exhales with you. The kimono lies gentle in your lap, its folds humming a lullaby of craftsmanship. Remember the merchant energy from earlier sections. It glimmers again this time in subtle dyes and hidden details. Let's settle deeper into Iki. Major historical fact: during the Edo period 1603 to 1868, sumptuary laws barred flashy colors and gold embroidery from commoners. Yet artisans responded with refined understatement, nurturing the aesthetic of Iki, sophisticated subtlety wrapped in everyday life. Obscure cultural tidbit: one of the hallmarks of Iki was the Edo koman pattern, textile that, from a distance, seems plain, but upon close inspection reveals thousands of tiny dots like shark skin. The same koman motif emerged in the Muromachi period and remained beloved into the Edo era. Your fingertips drift across the imagined texture, tiny, hidden like a secret lull in the cloth. Historians still debate whether Iki was an act of subtle rebellion or evolved taste under restraint. Let that whispered question drift you gently. 3 soft jokes drift by, imagining someone squinting. Is that plain or shark skin fancy? Picturing an artisan grinning. I'll hide sparkle in the dots, only the patient will find it. And thinking Iki sounds like IKEA, but thoughtfully curated, rather than baffling to assemble. The irony settles so softly, complexity folded into plainness, and plainness coaxing you toward gentle rest. You remember the samurai practicality and now layer it with Komen's hidden beauty. The room is hushed, your breath deeper, each fold transformed into a lullaby woven in silk. You rest deeper in the hush, the soft glow of that papered light easing your edges. The kimono in your lap bears the memory of every fold. Sadadatami, the standing fold technique from section 1, fades into muscle memory, guiding your hands with quiet wisdom. You sense the rhythm of centuries in every gentle crease. Let's fold new history into this tactile lullaby. Major historical fact. The kasode, literally small sleeves, started as an undergarment in the Heian. Period 794 to 1185, and by the Muromachi period 1336 to 1573. It had become everyday outerwear, adopting the modern kimono's straight seams and T-shaped silhouette. Obscure cultural tidbit. During the Muromachi era, cotton cultivation began in earnest, introducing durable, breathable cotton fabrics for everyday wear, making summer folds feel as light as a cotton cloud. You drift a finger across the cloth, imagining the cool weight of woven cotton resting against your skin. Historians still debate whether the switch to cotton was mainly about comfort or about economy. But let that uncertainty feel as gentle as the fabric sleeping in your hands. 3 tiny jokes ripple, picturing someone summoning, cotton kimono, for nap, day is it lazy or genius. Imagining a Muromachi tailor whispering, cotton, because silk was too extra today, and thinking that modern pajamas would fold themselves if they were smart enough. The irony nests softly. A shift born of necessity becomes your soft cradle tonight. The room breathes with folds. You breathe with history. Your breath deepens. Light ripples across the tatami, as though the air itself is folding in rhythm. The cotton threads murmur stories of Muromachi summers, and you drift further into that woven hush. Let's weave in another aesthetic, the dyeing arts that made kimono into canvases of sleep-ready poetry. Historical fact. The dyeing technique known as tsujigana, embroidery of dye. Resist techniques, ink painting, gold leaf. Even embroidery originated in the Muromachi period and adorned upper-class garments with whimsical beauty. Obscure tidbit after being cherished in life. Many tsujigana garments were donated to temples when their patrons passed, then later repurposed as decorative shrine panels like a cloth lullaby folded into ritual. Your fingers trace imaginary petals of dye on smooth cotton. Scholars still debate whether tsujigana referred to technique, motif, or color, but let that ambiguity float gently over you like drifting petals. 3 subtle jokes drift by, imagining a wealthy samurai sighing, more gold, please, but make it soft, picturing the temple curator thinking, I've got kimono art panel, still combed hair, and thinking that tsujigana was early fabric repurposed into gallery art, like silent Instagram posting from centuries past. The irony whispers softly. Extravagance ended up in temple, and now it folds softly into your sleepy imagination. You recall the muted icky shades and hidden Koman patterns from earlier now petals of gold and dye join them in your dream tapestry. The room breathes in harmony, your eyelids in sync with every imagined fold, every motif, until history and sleep entwine like threads in a kimono. You feel the tatami beneath your knees as if it were an old friend, familiar and forgiving. The kimono in your hands smells faintly of cotton, and faint incense from the corner of the room, a gentle reminder of how history can linger in the smallest details. You probably won't make it through this day without drifting into a nap, and that's perfectly acceptable here. Remember to like and subscribe softly in your mind, and maybe comment your location and local time. It's strangely comforting to know who else is folding time and fabric alongside you. Tonight, your journey leads to the practice of obi tying, the elegant belts that hold the kimono in place. Historical fact: during the Edo period 1603 to 1868, the obi grew wider and more decorative, turning from a simple sash into a statement piece of fashion. Obscure tidbit: some obi were padded with layers of cotton or paper to achieve a perfectly rigid fold, making them surprisingly heavy. People joked that samurai needed the strength of Hercules just to adjust them properly. You lift the obi in your hands, feeling the weight and the history of countless shoulders it has rested upon. 3 tiny jokes drift through your mind, imagining a geisha whispering, "It's just a belt." But let's act like it's a throne, picturing a samurai muttering, "Who knew fashion could be a workout?" And thinking about a modern student trying this perfect gym and history class in one. The irony rests softly. The same fabric that makes you sleepy today once demanded strength, patience, and grace. Your fingers learn the rhythm of the sash, folding, tucking, and smoothing. And in this slow dance, the room hums with quiet history. The light through the shoshi screens shifts gently, casting elongated, sleepy shadows across the tatami. Each fold of the kimono now feels like a conversation, a whisper between your hands and the centuries of practice before you. The room smells faintly of wood, paper, and the distant hint of garden flowers outside, and you drift further into the gentle hum of tradition. Tonight, you explore seasonal symbolism in kimono patterns. Historical fact: Japanese kimono have long featured motifs representing season's cherry blossoms for spring, maple leaves for autumn, chrysanthemums for late summer, allowing the wearer to subtly align themselves with the natural world. Obscure tidbit: there were once kimono made entirely for specific festivals, like a garment only to be worn during moon viewing nights, and some families believed wearing them out of season brought bad luck, which must have made laundry day very stressful. 3 soft jokes float along with the petals of imagination, picturing a silk kimono saying, "I only do cherry blossom vibes," imagining someone thinking, "So I can't wear this in July." Noted, and picturing a modern fashion influencer posting, "Throwback kimono, pre-AI edition." Scholars still debate whether seasonal symbolism was originally aesthetic or moral instruction, but let it lull you with gentle ambiguity, like a drowsy evening breeze. Now, it's draped across your fingers, a bridge between summer petals and gold-threaded tsujigana. You fold, tuck, smooth, and align, imagining each gesture a small bow to history itself. The soft scrape of fabric whispers a lullaby, blending past and present, and you feel the slow, steady pull of calm that only centuries of practice can teach. The room grows quieter now, as though even the air has leaned in to listen. A faint breeze slips through the half-open shoshi, carrying the smell of pine and distant earth. You sit still for a moment, kimono in your lap, feeling as though time itself has slowed enough for you to see the threads between centuries. The folds are already familiar under your fingertips, and yet every crease feels new, like rereading a favorite poem and finding a different line that speaks louder than before. Tonight, the story lingers on the art of layering kimono, known as kasene no iron, a practice from the Heian period 7-9 for 1185. Historical fact: Heian aristocrats wore up to 12 layers of robes, carefully chosen to reflect seasonal colors and personal rank. Obscure tidbit: there was even an entire court position called the kasane no hakasi, or master of layered colors, whose sole duty was to advise nobles on harmonious color combinations, an early stylist, but with imperial authority. 3 sleepy jokes glide past, picturing a Heian lady sighing. Yes, I need 7 shades of purple because one simply isn't enough. Imagining the kasane no hakasi muttering, I went to school for this, and quietly realizing you'd need an entire calendar just to keep track of what to wear when. Scholars still debate whether some of the layering customs were strictly aesthetic or deeply symbolic. But that uncertainty rocks gently, like a boat floating across a still pond. Your fingertips smooth imaginary folds, arranging invisible color palettes with a calm precision. Outside, a single cicada begins to hum. Inside, history folds softly into itself and into you. You stretch your fingers, slow and unhurried, letting the sensation of fabric linger before lifting another garment. The shadows across the tatami deepen slightly, though the light remains soft, as if the afternoon itself has decided to nap alongside you. Somewhere beyond the walls, bamboo creaks gently, responding to the weight of the wind, and you find yourself folding in rhythm with the sway. Tonight's path leads to the hidden language of family crests, or kamen, sewn or dyed into kimono to mark identity and heritage. Historical fact: during the Edo period 1603 to 1868, regulations required that formal kimono display a family crest, typically on the back, sleeves, and chest, like a silent introduction without words. Obscure tidbit: some families even design secret variation crests, symbols meant to be recognized only by close allies or specific guilds, a quiet way of saying, "We know, but we don't say." 3 tiny jokes drift lazily past, imagining someone choosing a crest shaped like a gourd and confidently saying, "Yes, this represents my entire personality," picturing a merchant whispering. If you know, you know, and realizing that secret crests were basically Edo-era private chat rooms. Scholars still debate whether the elaborate rules surrounding crest placement were always enforced or more symbolic. But the uncertainty feels as soft as the brushed silk between your fingers. You trace an imaginary emblem with your fingertip, breathing in and out as if each exhale settles centuries of customs into the tatami beneath you. Outside, the cicada song deepens, joining your steady rhythm, folding you further into stillness. The air in the room is heavier now, as if time itself has folded into the silence. You shift slightly, adjusting your knees against the tatami, and the faint scent of pressed straw rises warm, earthy, grounding. Your fingertips rest against the smooth fabric, pausing before the next fold, like the inhale before a quiet thought. Somewhere, far away, a bamboo wind chime answers the breeze with a hollow sigh. Tonight's quiet detour brings us to the understated elegance of kimono sleeves, known as sewed. Historical fact: during the Heian period 7-9 for 1185, noblewomen's sleeves grew extravagantly long, sometimes brushing the floor, as a display of status and grace. A cascade of fabric trailing behind you was, apparently, the ultimate power move. Obscure tidbit: there was once a belief that you could express your emotions by sending someone you're detached. Kimono, sleeve essentially, an ancient read my vibe text message. 3 small jokes drift through the shadows like moths around a lamp, imagining someone saying, I left you on sleeve, picturing a Heian poet trying to interpret the gesture, is this friendship or heartbreak? And realizing this might be the first recorded example of passive-aggressive fashion. Historians still debate whether sleeve exchanges were truly common or mostly poetic exaggeration. But the uncertainty feels comforting, like letting unanswered letters remain folded in a drawer. You lift an imaginary fold and let it spill over your palm, heavy with centuries of gestures, secret messages, and wordless confessions. Outside, the cicadas are joined by a distant night heron. And for a brief moment, everything breathes in sync with your slowing heart. The lantern light pools gently on the floor now, soft gold blurring the edges of the tatami mats. Shadows lean long and patient against the walls, stretching like they have nowhere else to be. You place a freshly folded kimono aside and trace the subtle grain of the fabric, sensing the ghost of hundreds of careful hands before yours. This quiet repetition is no longer just folding, it's remembering. Tonight, the story winds into the art of storing kimono, a ritual that feels almost like tucking history to bed. Historical fact: kimono were traditionally stored in tansu, wooden chests made from paulownia, a lightweight, aromatic wood prized for protecting fabric from humidity and insects. Obscure tidbit: some families believed that placing dried persimmon peels inside the drawers brought extra protection against moths, creating what might be the earliest natural fabric softener hack. 3 soft jokes hover like drifting petals, picturing a Edo-era grandmother saying, don't forget the persimmon peel. Or the kimono will haunt you, imagining someone bragging, my chest is lined with paulownia, no big deal. And realizing these practices are basically the ancestor of vacuum-sealed storage bags. Scholars still debate whether certain storing rituals had deeper spiritual meaning or were simply practical precautions. But the ambiguity folds neatly, like silk under fingertips. Now, you ease a folded kimono into its invisible wooden home, imagining the faint creak of the lid closing softly, sealing away not just fabric, but seasons, festivals, and private whispers. Outside, the night air grows thicker and the wind chime has gone silent, as though even it has decided to listen. The night has settled fully now, soft and absolute, like ink spilled quietly across the edges of the sky. You pause for a moment, resting your hands in your lap, feeling the slight warmth left behind by the folded fabric. The cicadas outside are fewer now, their song thinning into the hush of deeper hours. The rhythm of your breath matches the pace of this room, the tatami, the still air, the soft weight of history pressing lightly on your shoulders. Tonight, we wander into the meaning behind kimono patterns, a language written not in words but in silk and dye. Historical fact: during the Edo period 1603 to 1868, certain motifs were tied to seasons, status, and sometimes even secret messages. Wisteria, for example, represented elegance and humility. Cranes symbolized long life, and waves hinted at perseverance through endless change. Obscure tidbit: there was once a pattern called Genji clouds, used to discreetly reference chapters from the tale of Genji, meaning that wearing certain robes was essentially the Heian version of quoting your favorite book in your bio. 3 quiet jokes ripple softly, imagining someone saying, "Yes, my kimono is basically a spoiler alert." Picturing a merchant bragging, this pattern means subtle wisdom, unlike yours. And realizing ancient Japan might have invented the first fandom merch. Historians still debate whether certain motifs held universal meaning or whether many interpretations were personal. But ambiguity here feels more like an invitation than a contradiction. You brush your fingertips along an imaginary crane, tracing the curve of its wings. And you breathe in slowly, as if the air itself carries forgotten stories. Outside, the night deepens, and somewhere far away, a river murmurs under starlight. The lantern burns lower now, its small circle of light collapsing into something softer, more fragile. You move slower too, as though matching its quiet descent into stillness. A half-folded kimono rests across your knees, its weight like a sleeping animal. And for a moment, you almost forget that you're touching fabric. At all it feels instead like touching time itself, smooth and patient beneath your hands. Tonight, the journey flows toward the etiquette of kimono wearing, a world where even the smallest detail mattered. Historical fact: in Edo, Japan, samurai families and merchants alike followed strict rules about how kimono were worn left panel over right. Obi knots tied to indicate occasion, sleeves adjusted according to status. Obscure tidbit: there was a tiny, unspoken rule about the obi age. A sash tucked above the obi, leaving it slightly visible, hinted that the wearer was fashionable and confident, while tucking it fully suggested modesty. Subtle signals, quiet statements. 3 light jokes pass like drifting shadows, imagining someone whispering, "My obi age is showing." Scandalous, picturing a stern elder scolding, "Your not angle dishonors our ancestors." And realizing Edo-era fashion policing would have thrived on social media hashtags. Scholars still debate whether some of these rules were widely enforced or mostly aspirational. But uncertainty here feels like part of the quiet charm. You tie an imaginary obi, snug and deliberate, and sense your own breath sensing with the silent precision of people long gone. Outside, the wind rises briefly, rustling through bamboo, before falling still again, as though the night is folding itself into the same calm rhythm. The night has reached that moment when silence turns almost liquid, where every sound seems to float rather than travel. You lean slightly back, letting your hands rest on the tatami, and feel the cool texture of the straw beneath your palms. A faint draft slides through the paper screen, carrying the delicate scent of pine from somewhere far off, as if a distant hillside is breathing in your direction. Tonight, we drift gently into the world of kimono dyeing techniques, where art and patience met in colors drawn from the earth itself. Historical fact. During the Muromachi period 1336 to 1573, the Yizen method of resist dyeing became a celebrated craft, allowing artisans to create intricate patterns by painting rice paste along outlines before coloring the fabric. It was delicate, exacting work, and one mistake could ruin months of preparation. Obscure tidbit. Some dyes were made from crushed safflowers, producing a shade so rare and expensive that only high-ranking nobles were allowed to wear it, a kind of ancient, members-only color palette. 3 quiet jokes flutter like drifting moths, imagining someone sighing, "Sorry, you can't sit with us. Your red isn't safflower enough," picturing a dye artisan whispering, "One wrong brush stroke and I retire to farming," and realizing that safflower exclusivity was basically the original luxury brand strategy. Historians still debate whether some shades were restricted purely by cost or by imperial law, though the truth, as always, is likely tangled somewhere in between. You brush an invisible fingertip across imagined fabric, feeling its weight, sensing its stories. Outside, a single night bird calls once, low and lingering, before vanishing back into silence. The lantern's flame has thinned into a soft tremor, and shadows now lean longer, stretching into unfamiliar shapes along the edges of the room. You exhale, unspooling a little more tension from your shoulders, and notice how the quiet repetition of folding has slowed your heartbeat to something steady and deliberate. Every small motion feels like a conversation with the past, carried in silk and thread. Tonight, we wander into the role of kimono in seasonal festivals, where clothing wasn't just worn, it became part of the ritual itself. Historical fact. In Edo-period Kyoto, the Gion Matsuri festival each July inspired elaborate displays of seasonal patterns on kimono, featuring motifs of summer grasses, cooling streams, and fireflies to mirror the surrounding world. Obscure tidbit. Some households reportedly sprinkled powdered pine ash on freshly laundered summer kimono to give them a faint silvery sheen in candlelight, creating the illusion of moonlit fabric indoors. 3 soft jokes drift lazily, imagining someone saying, "Yes, my kimono sparkles naturally. No pine ash here." Picturing a street of festival goers comparing who glows most convincingly under lanterns, and realizing pine ash might have been the Edo equivalent of adding a filter to your photo. Scholars still debate whether this was widespread practice or limited to Kyoto's wealthier districts. But the ambiguity feels like a quiet secret between friends. You picture yourself stepping softly across uneven stones, hearing shamisen notes ripple faintly from somewhere around the corner, and catching a drift of grilled eel in the warm air. Somewhere nearby, a child laughs, and for a moment, the centuries between you and them dissolve completely. The night deepens into something quieter than silence, the kind of hush that feels earned after a long day. You shift slightly on the tatami mat, feeling the woven strands press gently against your fingertips, and catch the faint crackle of the dying lantern beside you. The air carries a cool trace of cedar, and somewhere outside, a bamboo stalk clicks softly against another in the breeze. Tonight, we drift into the hierarchy hidden within kimono layers where status, subtlety, and silk were folded into each seam. Historical fact. During the Heian period 7-9 for 1185, court women often wore up to 12 layers of kimono, a style called Janie Hito, though, sometimes it was fewer, depending on the season or the wearer's rank. Obscure tidbit. There was a term, kasane no iram, meaning layered colors, where the choice of inner linings created hidden color harmonies visible only at the sleeves and collars. These secret pairings signaled taste and knowledge without ever saying a word. 3 quiet jokes surface, then fade, imagining someone whispering, 12 layers. No wonder chairs weren't invented yet. Picturing a courtier panicking because their seasonal palette clashes, and realizing Instagram would have collapsed trying to process those outfit of the day photos. Historians still debate whether the strict color codes were rigidly enforced or simply suggested trends. But even uncertainty here feels like a softness built into the fabric. You tug at an imaginary cuff, wondering how it would feel to carry a hidden spectrum of colors wherever you walk, like tucking your favorite song into your pocket. Outside, a single breeze stirs the bamboo again, and then stillness returns, as if the night itself is listening with you. The lantern has nearly surrendered now, its wick shrinking into a small orange pearl surrounded by shadows. You feel your shoulders loosening further, a steady weight settling into your chest like calm water. Your fingers rest lightly on the edge of folded silk, and you find yourself breathing in time with the room's quiet slow, measured, and deeply unhurried. Tonight, we wander into the evolution of kimono sleeves, small shifts in fabric that carried larger meanings over centuries. Historical fact by the Edo period. Unmarried women began wearing kimono with dramatically long sleeves called furisode, sometimes brushing against the knees, while married women's sleeves were deliberately shorter and more practical. Obscure tidbit. Some towns held informal competitions during New Year. Gatherings to see whose sleeves were widest and most elegantly embroidered. A quiet rivalry played out without anyone admitting it was a rivalry at all. 3 soft jokes ripple faintly, imagining someone sighing. Your sleeves could double as curtains, picturing tailors quietly gossiping about excessive embroidery budgets, and realizing these contests were basically the Edo equivalent of who wore it best. Historians still debate whether these sleeve competitions were widespread customs or simply local traditions recorded in passing. But their uncertain status makes them feel like gentle rumors overheard from another time. You picture yourself lifting an imagined sleeve, letting it fall slowly, hearing the faint whisper of silk on silk. Outside, the night has cooled, the cicadas have grown silent, and the air settles into an even, endless quiet. The night feels softer now, as though the edges of the world have blurred into a single long exhale. You sit with your back straight but relaxed, fingertips grazing the smooth grain of the low wooden table. A hush lingers in the air, broken only by the faint crackle of the lantern's final glow. Somewhere, beyond the paper screens, a distant river moves, but you can only sense its voice muffled, like a memory whispered from another room. Tonight, we drift into the secret language of kimono motifs, where patterns spoke quietly across fabric. Sharing, meaning only with those who knew how to listen. Historical fact. During the Edo period, certain motifs like plum blossoms for renewal, pine, needles for longevity, or flowing water for resilience were carefully chosen to match events, seasons, or even personal intentions. Obscure tidbit. Among merchants, it was common to commission custom patterns that disguised their business logos inside floral or geometric designs, turning fabric into a subtle form of branding centuries before billboards existed. 3 soft jokes slip in like passing clouds, imagining someone saying, "Yes, my family crest is hidden in this chrysanthemum good luck, finding it." Picturing rival shops subtly one-upping each other through increasingly elaborate patterns, and realizing Edo street fashion was essentially influencer marketing before hashtags. Historians still debate whether these secret motifs were common knowledge or intended as private messages. But either way, they stitched a layer of meaning beneath every fold. You run a hand over imaginary silk, tracing the outline of a crane without lifting your finger, as though memorizing a language you never learned. Outside, the faint sound of the river persists, steady and calm, carrying the night further downstream. By now, the lantern has faded entirely, leaving the room in soft grey shadow. Yet, the darkness feels gentle rather than oppressive, like being wrapped in an old quilt. You shift slightly, tucking your knees closer, and let your breath deepen with the rhythm of the evening's quiet. A cicada starts its call somewhere outside, then stops, as if thinking better of it. Tonight, we follow the journey of Kimono across generations, where time itself becomes another layer folded carefully within the fabric. Historical fact: it was common practice for families to pass down kimono as heirlooms, sometimes altering sleeves, linings, or embroidery to suit a new wearer, but always preserving certain original details to keep the garment's memory intact. Obscure tidbit: some families reportedly kept small handwritten notes tucked into hidden seamstiny records of when the kimono had been worn, which festivals it had seen, and which stories it silently carried. 3 quiet jokes drift in like slow ripples, imagining someone saying, "This kimono has seen more parties than I have." Picturing a grandparent reminding everyone to treat the sleeves gently. They've survived for emperors, and realizing these garments functioned as early, low-tech diaries that literally couldn't lose their password. Historians still debate whether these seam notes were widespread custom or rare acts of sentimentality. But the thought of them feels warm, like finding a pressed flower in a forgotten book. You imagine lifting a garment older than your own memory, feeling its weight, knowing that dozens of hands, festivals, and evenings have touched the same silk. Outside, a breeze stirs gently against the paper screens, bringing the faint scent of distant rain. The paper screens sigh gently as the night wind slips through the narrow cracks, carrying with it the faint smell of pine, needles, and rain-damp earth. The silence feels deeper here, as though every sound has been swallowed into the folds of the dark. You rest your palms flat against the tatami, feeling its soft, fibrous texture press lightly into your skin. A single droplet of water falls somewhere outside. Then another, rhythmic and unhurried, as if the night has decided to speak only in pauses. Tonight, we drift into the ceremonial art of dressing, where the act of putting on a kimono became almost a ritual of time slowed deliberately. Historical fact: during the Heian and Edo periods, court attendants or professional dressers, called kitsushi, were often employed to assist the elite in wearing formal kimono, as the many layers and precise folds could take hours to arrange correctly. Obscure tidbit: in some regions, there was a belief that tying the obi, the wide sash around the waist, with the wrong directional fold could invite bad luck, especially during weddings or seasonal festivals. 3 soft jokes stir and drift away, imagining someone sighing, "I scheduled my dressing appointment 3 hours early. And I'm still late, picturing attendants debating sash folding like referees over an invisible scoreboard. And realizing this entire process would have baffled anyone hoping for a quick outfit change. Historians still debate whether these regional superstitions about sash direction were widespread beliefs or simply local customs passed quietly between generations. You imagine standing still as multiple hands arrange fabric around you, layer by layer, until the air feels thicker, warmer, calmer. Outside, the rain begins in earnest now, steady and soft, like 1,000 tiny drums falling on the earth. The rain has deepened into a gentle curtain, its rhythm soft and irregular, like breath that hasn't decided whether to sleep yet. You shift slightly, leaning against a low wooden beam, and watch shadows move faintly along the paper walls where the lantern light used to be. It's the kind of night where silence and sound exist together, neither one fully winning. Tonight, we wander into the quiet politics of fabric choice, a subtle world where color and texture often spoke louder than words. Historical fact: during the Edo period, strict sumptuary laws dictated which social classes could wear certain fabrics, such as prohibiting merchants from displaying excessive wealth through rich silks, though many cleverly subverted the rules by wearing muted colors outside, while hiding elaborate patterns on the inner linings. Obscure tidbit: one particularly persistent rumor claims some kimono makers created reversible garments on purpose, allowing wearers to flash expensive linings during private gatherings, while maintaining a modest appearance in public. 3 slow jokes emerge, imagining someone whispering, "This isn't silk, it's aggressively shiny cotton." Picturing merchants winking at each other while twirling their inner linings like secret handshakes. And realizing Edo street style was essentially business on the outside, festival on the inside. Historians still debate whether these reversible kimono were a widespread strategy or a rare indulgence for those bold enough to test the law. You picture yourself sliding your fingertips along a silk lining no one else will ever see, smiling faintly at the secrecy of it. Outside, the rain lightens into a soft drizzle, and somewhere nearby, a night bird calls once, then falls silent again. The rain has stopped now, leaving behind a deep, velvety quiet. You can almost hear the earth drinking, pulling each drop into its roots, softening beneath the weight of the night. A faint mist begins to rise outside, curling slowly around the edges of the paper screens like something alive but unhurried. You shift slightly, drawing your knees closer, feeling the coolness of the tatami floor seep gently into your palms. Tonight, we follow the art of seasonal dressing, where time itself dictated color, fabric, and texture. Historical fact: during the Edo period, strict seasonal codes guided which kimono patterns and materials were appropriate, with floral motifs aligning to the natural cycles of plum blossom in early spring, flowing water for midsummer, maple leaves in autumn. Obscure tidbit: in Kyoto, some kimono designers even developed fabrics dyed with pigments that subtly changed tone depending on humidity, making garments shift with the weather like living calendars. 3 soft jokes unfold gently, imagining someone saying, "I can't, where this sits technically 5 days too early for maple leaves," picturing a designer boasting, "My kimono matches fog, top that." And realizing Edo-era fashion rules made modern dress codes look forgiving by comparison. Historians still debate whether these humidity-reactive dyes were rare experiments or a quietly thriving niche industry. But the idea adds a kind of quiet magic to the fabric garments that breathe alongside you, aware of the season's moods. You imagine sliding open a wooden drawer, feeling the rush of stored scent cedar, silk, and the faintest trace of incense-like, stepping into another season entirely. Outside, droplets cling stubbornly to leaves, catching what little lantern light remains. The mist thickens outside, rolling softly through unseen streets like a blanket unspooled from the sky. You breathe slowly, inhaling the faint scent of wet stone, wood, and distant river water, letting the air settle against your skin. Somewhere nearby, a single wooden gate creaks softly in the damp, then closes again without hurry, as though even the city itself is preparing to rest. Tonight, we sink into the quiet hierarchy of obi knots, where the way a sash was tied carried its own delicate social grammar. Historical fact, by the late Edo period, there were dozens of obi tying styles, each with coded meaning. Some knots reserved for unmarried women, others for formal ceremonies, and a few that indicated mourning. Obscure tidbit, one particularly elaborate knot, called the fukurasuzume or puffed sparrow, was said to have originated from courtesans in the pleasure districts before being adopted at court. A reversal of fashion influence that embarrassed more than a few officials. 3 gentle jokes rise and drift away, imagining someone fretting, "What if my knot says I am attending a funeral, but I am actually going to a tea tasting?" Picturing knots so complicated they required small instruction manuals, and realizing that Edo-era social signaling was basically wearable subtweeting. Historians still debate whether the fukurasuzume knot's origins were scandalously accurate or simply a well-loved urban legend. But the whispers have survived longer than the knots themselves. You picture running your fingers along the folded silk, firm and soft at once, the knot resting like a quiet promise at the spine. Outside, the mist has reached the courtyard, turning the lanterns into blurred halos that shimmer faintly in the dark. The mist still clings low to the earth, its edges blurred into lantern light, making the night feel softer, quieter, slower than it already is. You rest your palm against the cool frame of the sliding door, the wood smooth beneath your fingertips, worn by decades of hands doing exactly what yours is doing, now pausing before stepping outside. The faintest breeze carries the distant scent of roasted tea leaves from somewhere down the alley, mingled with the damp musk of cedar beams and tatami mats breathing in the moisture. Tonight, we drift into the secret language of sleeve length, where fabric and form quietly revealed who you were before you ever spoke. Historical fact, during the Edo period, unmarried women often wore furisode, kimono with long, flowing sleeves sometimes reaching the knees or lower, while married women transitioned to shorter sleeves as a signal of maturity and responsibility. Obscure tidbit, in some regions, longer sleeves were believed to catch good fortune and happiness during dances, as though each wide curve of fabric could scoop blessings right out of the air. 3 gentle jokes rise and float away like fog, imagining someone sighing, "I got married and immediately lost a feet of sleeve." Picturing dancers trying to scoop luck with the grace of someone catching falling confetti, and realizing Edo-era parties might have looked like slow-motion wind tunnels of silk. Historians still debate whether the good fortune catching belief was widely practiced or simply a poetic superstition passed from mothers to daughters. The air feels still, thickened somehow, as though holding you in place just long enough for another memory to settle. A night insect clicks somewhere nearby, then goes silent again, leaving you alone with the quiet weight of silk and dampened earth. A single droplet slides from the edge of the roof, landing on the stone path with a sound so soft you almost miss it. You breathe in the faint smell of rain-soaked bamboo, sharp and green against the deeper sense of earth and lacquered wood. Somewhere deeper in the house, a door slides open and closes again, slow enough to avoid disturbing the silence that everyone here seems to agree upon without ever speaking. Tonight, we follow the ceremonies of garment storage, where kimono were treated almost as living beings with their own cycles of rest and renewal. Historical fact, many Edo households participated in koromoge, the seasonal ritual of changing wardrobes twice a year, shifting from heavier silks and layered garments in winter to lighter, breathable weaves in summer. Obscure tidbit. Some households believed cedar chests should breathe, meaning drawers were left slightly ajar during certain phases of the moon to prevent trapping. The spirit of the fabrica practice halfway between practicality and quiet superstition. 3 soft jokes drift gently past, imagining someone whispering, "Sorry, my kimono's in hibernation until June." Picturing families arguing over the optimal lucky ventilation angle, and realizing that even clothes apparently needed more rest days than most people get now. Historians still debate whether the moon phase connection was a widespread custom or a handful of poetic. Households interpreting fabric care as something spiritual. You imagine sliding open one drawer just far enough to let the cedar sweet air escape. The scent soft and cool against your face, like breathing in time itself. Outside, the mist thins slowly, retreating toward the river as the night deepens into a softer, slower stillness. The night has grown deeper now. Though you wouldn't notice it at first glance, the lanterns still cast their muted halos. The paper screens still glow faintly, and somewhere a single cicada hums into the damp air as though refusing to accept the season's end. You sit back on your heels, fingertips pressed lightly to the cool tatami, breathing in the layered scent of cedar, ink, and distant river water. The world feels slower here, as though every passing hour folds neatly into another, stacking itself like carefully pressed garments. Tonight, we slip into the delicate etiquette of gifting kimono, where generosity carried quiet codes understood without words. Historical fact, in Edo-period Japan, gifting a kimono was an act of profound respect and intimacy, often marking marriages, alliances, or major life transitions. Obscure tidbit, in Kyoto, some shops wrapped their gifted kimono in paper scented faintly with crushed plum blossoms, meaning the fragrance arrived before the garment itself, an invisible prologue carried on the air. 3 soft jokes settle gently into the silence, imagining someone handing you a kimono while whispering, "I hope you like the smell more than the pattern." Picturing gift receipts written on tiny bamboo slips, and realizing this system made regifting a logistical nightmare. Historians still debate whether scented wrappings were exclusive to elite circles, or if more modest. Merchants quietly borrowed the practice over time. The faintest draft curls in from the garden, rustling the edges of your imaginary sleeves, carrying with it the promise of change of garments resting, returning and beginning their quiet cycles again. Outside, the night deepens, soft as folded silk, quiet as breath. The last lantern goes out. The night breathes in, and for a moment the entire world feels suspended in a slow, endless hush. You settle deeper into yourself, as though the tatami beneath you has softened, as though your body has folded neatly into the fabric of this space. A faint scent of cedar lingers in the air, threaded with rain-cooled earth and the memory of incense burned hours ago. The sound of water trickles somewhere unseen, soft, steady, certain pulling your thoughts into smaller, slower shapes. The garments are all resting, now, folded into quiet cedar chests, their colors and textures hidden until another season calls them back into light. The drawers breathe faintly, the fabric breathing with them, holding traces of every fingertip, every festival, every ordinary day gone by. Outside, the mist has drifted fully to the riverbanks, carrying with it the soft reflection of lanterns long extinguished. Somewhere, a single paper screen shifts against the wind, and the silence folds neatly back around it. Time itself feels different here, unfolded, unmeasured, unhurried. You imagine the faint pattern of plum blossoms stitched into a sleeve, waiting patiently in the dark for the right morning to return. You picture the knots you tied earlier loosening on their own, silk falling softly into place, the tension slowly unwinding with the night. The house breathes with you now. The air cools around your shoulders, each sound grows slower, smaller, further away, and you let yourself drift away from lanterns and cedar, away from fabric and ritual, away from the careful layers of history that will still be here tomorrow. For now, there is nothing to decide, nothing to fold, nothing to hold. Just breath, soft and quiet, matching the rhythm of the river as it moves beneath the fading mist. The night keeps watch for you. You are safe. And the story can wait.